Hello, welcome to Taylor with Sugar. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And if you haven't clicked on the notification button, please do click on the notification button. Today we are learning how to cut a corset blouse, a corset top with a V-waist. Now I'm starting by marking the bust line, the nipple point, the under bust, and I'll go to the blouse, the length of the half length of the blouse, or probably the blouse length if you like, if it's a blouse, if it's a full blouse. Now we're going to go next step, we're going to go to measuring and marking it all over again on the paper. This is paper for pattern making, because you can't cut a corset without having a pattern to achieve your outfit. So now I'm rolling it straight down, join all the lines, all the dots. I'm going to join all the dots. After joining all the dots, I will now start now to check the shoulder divided into two. I divided into two plus 16, it gave me 8. Now I use my ruler to join the lines. Then from there, now I'm doing my bust interval, which is 4.5, because the nipple to nipple is 9, so I did 4.5 for my bust interval. Now I'm going to join the bust line, bust interval lines. I'm going to join them. Now from there, I'm going to come here and do my dart. I'm going to come here and do my dart like you see me do. That's 1 inch on both sides, 1 inch on both sides for my dart, 1 inch on both sides. So the under bust, on the bust line, 1 inch, 1 inch. Then I join my lines, I join my darts line, take it to the nipple. I'll take it to the nipple point. I'm using a French curve ruler, just so that for beginners, if your hand cannot achieve it on your own, if you cannot curve it free-handedly, you can use this French ruler to get your bust curve very well. I'm using a French curve ruler to achieve this. You can see the bust is out. Now I'm going to come down now to get the radius of my bust. I'm checking the nipple point to the under bust, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to use that to get the radius of my bust. So I'm taking it round, getting the radius of my bust. I'm taking it round to get the radius of my bust. I'm going to take that round. I'm going to go all the way round. Mark it and make sure you get it from the nipple point. 4 inches is what I'm doing. Round. Now I'll join my lines. And make sure I join my lines. You have to try to make sure your hand is as steady as possible. Your hand has to be as steady as possible so that you get a neat line. Now I'll come to the side here. I'll take off 1/2 inch, which is what I'm showing you. Take off 1/2 inch there. Slant it to the under bust and come to this other side to bring out the middle piece of my corset blouse. I did 1.5 there, and I'm taking it straight. Now I'm going to do the sweetheart. I'm giving it a slope there. From the nipple point, I brought it up by 2 inches, and I gave it the middle point. The middle point of your corset has to be 1/2 inch or 3 points. 1/2 inch or 3 points. Me, I did 1/2 inch, so I connected it with my 1.5 and got my center piece line. You can see the curve there. So now I'm going to go up by 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch, because my client doesn't want her bust to be so exposed. Normally you can go up by 1 inch. Now I'm sliding it down to the nipple point to get my sweetheart. Now I've gotten my sweetheart. I use my curve ruler, like I said, for beginners, so that you can understand how to use it and how to start slanting the yoke of my blouse. Now I've gotten it. That's 3 inches by 3 inches. 3 inches by 3 inches is what I did. 3 inches by 3 inches. So you cut out the yoke of the blouse. You cut it out, and you reduce the shoulder by 1/2 inch to give it a nice slope at the shoulder part, so that you have a neat shoulder. So now I'll divide my armhole by 2, which is giving me 5. I'm sorry if you can't see this too clearly, but please try and follow up. Now from there, I'm going to now measure the bust of my client, and I added 3.5 inches. That includes the 1 inch I removed for the dart. I added 3.5 inches allowance, 3.5 inches allowance. Now I'm measuring my under bust measurement. The same thing, divided into 4. Divide your tape into 4. Divide your measurement into 4. I added 3.5 inches also. The same thing, I'm going to add 3.5 inches all the way, all the way. The waist, the same thing. I divided it by 4 and added 3.5 inches. Now I'm going to the same thing at the waist. So I'm going to join my lines. I'm joining my lines now. Take the slope to the armhole slope. I curved it out. So after getting that, I completed all my lines. I'll come here now and extend my line, my under bust, my half length, my bust line. I'm extending my line so I can go to the back. I'm done with the front part. I'm extending my line so I can go with the front to the back. Extend the lines. That's what I'm doing here. I'm extending the lines. Okay. So after extending the lines, I'll come here. I'm divide the bust into 4. And then add 2.5 inches, because the dart at the back is just 1/2 inch on both sides. 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. So I added 2.5 inches to get the back. I'll give it a full roll all the way to the end. Then after that, I will now do, I have to turn the paper so that you can see what I'm doing. A full roll to the end, then I'll do my zip allowance, which is 1 inch. I'll achieve my zip allowance with 1 inch. Okay, now I'll measure my shoulder. My shoulder is 16, I divide into 2, that's 8. Shoulder 16, divide into 2, that's 8. And I'll mark my shoulders. Mark my shoulder. I join the lines. 2 inches, 1.5 inch at the back. Remember, 2 inches by the shoulder of the yoke, 1.5 at the depth of the yoke at the back. 1.5 for the depth, 2 inches for the width of the shoulder. I remove 1/2 inch by the shoulder slant, so give it a good slope on the shoulder. So to get my hook eye, here I'm bringing out the back neck depth, and that's the zip allowance. I'll now come the bust interval is 9, divided into 2, that's 4.5. So I'm marking it all the way at the back as well. From the bust line to the blouse length, mark it all the way. I will move 1/2 inch on both sides, 1/2 inch, as you can see, 1/2 inch on both sides. I use my ruler to complete the lines. Use my ruler to complete the lines. Okay, so the back, sometimes you have people with a back that is a little bit folded. We'll just reduce the back by 1 inch. I reduce this one by 1 inch. I reduced it by 1 inch and slanted it to the side. Now, the neck depth of the blouse is about 11 inches. I removed it there and slanted it out to give her back a nice slope. That's what I did there. So now after this, I'm going to join my lines of my armhole. Now I'm making the yoke of the back look nice. For the center piece hole, there's always at the back, there's always making the dress so beautiful at the back. Now we'll start measuring the body. Divide it into 4 again. divide her bust into 4 again. I've divided her bust. This is her waist, 31, divided into 2. We divide it into 4. Then her waist, we divide it as well. We did that under bust earlier. We add 2.5 inches allowance at the back, not 3.5. At the front, if you notice, I did 3.5. In the back, I'm doing 2.5 because that at the back is 1/2 inch. That at the front is 1 inch. So now I'm covering the armhole, and now I have my patterns ready. You can mark them. Here I did 2 piece, 2 piece, 2 piece, 1 piece, 1 piece. You can mark them so you don't get confused with the patterns. Now all I'm going to do is to cut it out. Okay, now I'm slanting the V part of my front blouse. The V part, I always like to slant this while I'm doing my pattern so that I don't get confused. I don't do it after I finish sewing. I do it before I start sewing so I don't get confused. So I have exactly what I need on my paper before I cut out my fabric. So I'm cutting out everything now. I'm going to go straight to that. I'm cutting out everything. Okay, I'm going to cut it out. That's the full pattern, front and the back. That's the front yoke. That's the back pattern. Everything is out and it looks nice. So I'm going to start shredding. I'm going to cut it out, everything out, and let's see what it looks like before we place on our fabric. Okay, the same thing I'm doing here. I'm cutting this one out. We'll start placing on our fabric little by little. Okay, I'm cutting out. Hey, my sisters and my brothers, this can be a very difficult task. So this can be a very difficult task. It needs a lot of concentration to do. It needs a lot of, as the back piece is ready. The back piece is ready. Yes, the back piece is ready. Back piece is ready. That's the yoke for the back. Now I'm going to cut out the middle hole at the back. I'm cutting out the neck yoke, the slant shoulder, the yoke for the neck at the back. So that's it. It's like nice, well done. I've notched the zip part, the hook part actually. Now come to the front part. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to shred it just the way it is. And try not to overcut your pattern so you don't cut away where you're not supposed to cut. So that's what I do here. I try not to overcut. I follow my patterns earnestly and I cut it out well. So I'm cutting now. You can see from the video that the patterns came out very nice and came out perfectly. So that's my center piece. Notch out the nipple point so you don't get confused. That's the front piece. Everything is complete. The yoke, I'm cutting out the yoke neck. I'll slant out the shoulder as well. Everything is complete. Everything is fine. So now these are my fabrics. This is what I'm sewing with. Sewing with the chantilly net. I'm making like an illusion transparent corset blouse. That's what I'm making. So I'm working with chantilly lace, and that's what I'm going to place all my patterns on to cut out my pieces. Okay, now I start with the cutting. I'm cutting. You first place, you pin. I always advise you pin properly so that the thing does not shift, because it can be so tricky. These patterns can come out and just mess up your whole outfit. Now if you notice, I added seam allowance 1/2 inches in this cut. I added seam allowance 1/2 inches. That will give you the allowance for you to join your clothes. I added seam allowance. Now I'm slanting down that place to make it equal, in case it's not equal before. Then make sure you pin all the time. Make sure you pin it well. Make sure you pin it on the fabric well so it doesn't shift, it doesn't shake, it doesn't come out to give you something that will not be nice. Make sure you pin it very well. That's what I've done all the way. It's always so not so easy, but you have to learn to pin. It's a very good thing. You see, half an inch seam allowance, half an inch seam allowance again for joining your pieces. The half an inch is for joining your pieces together, so you don't have a shortage in measurement. The half an inch is for joining your pieces together. Okay, so you see it, half an inch done. So now we'll go to cutting out all pieces like this from beginning to the end. Please endeavor to follow the steps one after the other. It's not easy, it takes time, and that's why you see that a corset dress is always very expensive, because it's a dress that takes a lot of time to achieve. Before you measure on your pattern paper, before you cut out on your pattern paper, place on your fabric, cut out is always so difficult. You can see I added seam allowance round the breast cup because we are joining it round. I added seam allowance round. Unlike the other ones I cut, I added only in the dot line. So please take note of this. Add seam allowance round the breast cup, and always notch the nipple point so you don't get confused of which side is which side. Now I'm coming to my yoke at the back. I'm using the same lace for the yoke at the back, so I'm cutting out the yoke part at the back. You can see it's well cut and neatly. With your pattern paper, you can achieve this better and get a better result at the end of the day, apart from cutting it straight up. Now this is another fabric which I'm using for the dress, the lower part of the dress. I used it to design the back so that we can have a diffusion of both chantilly lace and the damask fabric, which I use for the down part of this. I'll show this in my next lesson. I'll show this in my next tutorial about how to cut the down part of your dress. Also, please subscribe on this channel. Please subscribe so you can follow and click your notification button so you can know when I post a new video. Okay, see now this is how to cut the back piece. For this, I remove 2.5 at the top and remove 1 1/4 at the down part to give it a nice slope, so that the back has that lovely slope where you can put your eyelet iron, or you put your rope to give you the corset ropey back that we all love, that we all like. Then you are going to mark it. You can see me writing rope down and up, so you don't get confused. This pattern can be very confusing. If you don't mark it up and down by the sides, you get confused. You won't know which side is for which, and then you spoil your outfit. Always remember to mark it the way I just did. Then you place on your pattern paper. You can see you add seam allowance as well to the sides for joining. So, and you notch so that you can know which side is for which side. You don't get confused. Now I'm done with the back as well. So I'm going to use this. I'm using this tapeter, and you can see I cut it on fold. If you don't know how to cut fabric on fold, you will see that in my next lesson. I'll show you how to cut fabric on fold. I cut it on fold so it can stretch like the lace that I'm using, so that after making the outfit it will fit very well. I cut it on fold. So always cut your fabrics on fold when you're sewing a corset. It makes it come out better. The dress is a bit stretchy and can fit at any time the person tries to wear it. So you can see I did it. I'm doing the same thing I did earlier. I'm doing with my lining. I'm using it now to line everything, every piece that I had cut out. I'm using it to line every piece of it. So after that, I'll go to the next stage, which is making sure I pin everything down. You can see me cutting it also for the breast cup. It is very important. Remember to notch your nipple point. Remember always to notch your nipple point. Remember to notch your nipple point so that you get a better result and you don't get confused when you are joining it. You don't get confused. Remember to notch your nipple point. Always notch this back as well so you don't get confused. Okay, so this is it. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like after I've done. This is what it looks like. Thank you for watching. Yay, God bless you. Please don't forget to like, comment, drop your comments, ask questions, and subscribe and share this channel. God bless you. Bye.